powerful 6.3 mega earthquake, just very shallow, just hit southern China, right near the border with India. A lot of terrain, a lot of mountain area. I'm concerned about landslides. I'm concerned about anybody in small villages in this area. I do not know. It just happened about 4 minutes ago. According to reports, this magnitude 6.3 earthquake has hit southern China near the border with India. It's extremely shallow. It's only 6.2 miles deep. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, of course, they could always adjust it up or down. Just letting you know it's a fluid situation. The quake hit at a very shallow depth of 6.2 miles. Now, the population, it was within 58 kilometers. It was about 35 miles from a city of 200,000 people. Okay? And we have no report of casualties, property damage, anything like that. But, of course, it just happened. It's way too early to know. I don't suspect any kind of tsunami issues because this was a definitely right in land quake. The question is, did a 6.3 shallow quake in that area, were there any homes, villages that could have been buried by landslide, or just, because their housing not real sturdy there in China, and especially that rural area there? So did any homes collapse? Did any, if there was any villages there of 15,000 people or 20,000 people, you could have some serious problems. We will try to keep you up to speed on this as information comes in, and I'll update you in the descriptions or just below the descriptions right there in the comments, okay? May change the header a little bit too if I need to, but 6.3, very shallow earthquake, just rocks China minutes ago. I'll be back with more current world events and how they relate to biblical prophecy. Certainly, Jesus said there would be earthquakes in diverse places, different places, and they are definitely happening in these last days.
Hello, everybody. It is 4:46 p.m. Central Time on Friday, the 17th of November, 2017, and I've got you here on the Earthquake 3D live stream, and we have a breaking news situation here. A 6.6 magnitude earthquake, maybe larger, maybe smaller, just revised up to 6.6, has struck at the border of India and China next to Myanmar, right on our red arrow at our bend in the plate. And this is a very significant sized earthquake for this region in particular. There are many villages and cities almost on mountaintops and hillsides. Several of the constructions in this different cities are made of stone and brick and cinder block, and we're looking at probably some fairly significant damage since it's a shallow earthquake. Now, this 7.0 earthquake borderline, it may go up, go down. It's a mid-range 6. It's a big one. Where did it come from? We go back a few days. We have our deep earthquakes stretching from here over at Fiji all the way over to India right here at the border of Pakistan. Sandwiched in between here, we have Mount Sinabung erupting over and over again, and the earthquakes terminating there at the base of Mount Sinabung. Well, the halfway point between Mount Sinabung and the deep earthquakes over here in India or North Pakistan, of course, brings us right into the halfway point here. Now, we talked about this 3 days ago, and I'll go pull the update from 3 days ago. I think it's 3 days ago, to where we talked about this middle point being under stress. Now, this is 2 full magnitudes larger than the deep earthquake that struck to the west. So the deep earthquake that struck to the west at 228 kilometers deep measured in at 4.4 to 4.5. Now we get a shallow 6.5 at the halfway point between the volcano and the deep earthquake. It's shallow, it's big, it definitely caused damage, and people in the area deserve to know why they got struck. They're the halfway point between the deep earthquake over at the north tip of, I guess that's Pakistan actually, and then down here at Sinabung, where all those eruptions have happened over the past several days. So the halfway point, the fulcrum point, has been hit, and we are in a time of unrest. There is no doubt about it. We had a 7.3 just a few days back, 5 days ago, over in Iran. We had major deep earthquake activity over here, and spreading out from the West Pacific. All I can tell you is that over the last 2 days, we've seen this pick up from 5s, going to mid-range 5s, going to upper 5s. Now here we are at 6.5. So we're taking steps up as the pressure is spreading out. It is worthy to note that the last bigger earthquake that struck was the 5.8 and 5.4 at South Korea and Japan. If you add the 5.8 plus the 5.4, you get to 5.94 or a 6. If you add in the other 5s that are there all the way up the ridge, guys, it basically takes us right to a 6.5. You see where our arrows are coming off the West Pacific. There is great pressure coming across over into Europe, coming out of the West Pacific. So when I issue my warnings, I take it very serious when I'm talking about us going into another time of increase. And this is an increase. This is the largest earthquake to strike here in years. And this is not an exaggeration. It has been years since we've seen any large earthquake activity at the border of India and China right there. Over in Nepal, so you guys remember several years ago with Nepal getting hit. And now this is a little bit smaller than that, about a magnitude smaller. So we're talking about 10 times less power, which is good news. So it's 10 times less than what hit in Nepal that moved Mount Everest. But that still, put it in perspective, it's big. Keep in mind that our halfway point at Taiwan was hit with a 5.0, downgraded to 4.5 just a few hours ago. Check off Taiwan if you're keeping track of areas that we named to be hit. So now look at it. Again, a big earthquake has just struck over in Asia at the border of China and India. Now, most people think, India right here, but there's a little border region that connects through right here. It's like a land bridge, and it goes over to another larger section of India that connects to Myanmar. The reason we have the red arrows here, obviously, if you've been paying attention to my updates over years or months or days or weeks, you know that pressure transfers across these red arrows. And this big earthquake striking right on the back end of our red arrow on the plate boundary. Now we go all the way over to here in Iran, which was struck 5 days ago by our other super large earthquake, 7.3, and that's on our red line. Again, the plate boundaries are in flux. There is no doubt about it now. Take a look at the last, this is the last several days of 5.0s and greater, starting with our deep earthquake over here, following a line of progression across and over. Do you see it? Because that's what's going on here. So the middle point connected through. Also, I talked about this just 2 days ago. 2 days ago, I talked about how this point here in China was the only spot that needed to be filled in to connect the earthquakes all the way across from the Pacific over to our big one in Iran. And here it is. So one more time, a big earthquake like this is enough to cause major damage in the area. Probably going to be getting some major damage reports out of these little towns. A lot of the little towns. Let's go look up the earthquake epicenter while we're here. And then I'll save this as a video on my YouTube channel. And again, I get a little bit bummed out when an area gets hit in an area where we issue a warning and they probably didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like it's in China. Okay, and this is Zhejiang, India border. Okay. We'll go to Google Earth Pro. And let's make sure we got the right coordinates here. Here we go. Is the USGS even weighing in on this earthquake yet? No. Hold on. Does the USGS even have this earthquake? Let me go over to their site. I want to get the coordinates from the USGS. Okay. There we go. They do have it. It's just not on their feeds yet. USGS has an initial 6.3 instead of a 6.6 or a 6.5. Okay, whatever. We'll put the coordinates in. This is why you need an earthquake plan. Look, I mean, I know this is in an area, this remote area in China, but I mean, overall, when you take a look at it, it's pretty significant. It's a big enough, what's this? Tiba Kangari, that's the name of the mountain. Sindapu. Okay, I've never heard of any of these. So we'll just back it out. There it is. Now, here's China. And down to the south, like I said, it's India and Myanmar. We're going to turn off our borders and labels, and I'll turn off my place marks as well. And you'll be able to make out the shape of the edge of the craton. It comes up, makes a bend, goes over. Okay, these are the mountain ranges, the Himalayas, but it's also the edge of the Asian Russian craton going into China. And let's zoom in and see if do we have any towns nearby, I guess is the real question. I guess luckily there's no, look at the glaciers on this. Look at those glaciers. Look at that. That's wild. Okay. Well, I don't see any marked towns nearby. What's our, the nearest town that probably felt this is Ningxi. Ningxi. Well, oh wow, this is a pretty big town. Okay, well guys, there's probably some damage in this town with the sized earthquake that it is. And if we follow the roads up, you'll get to these more cliff top towns that I was talking about here. And you get up and you really get some that are up in here. These are towns. Look, I mean, there's like little houses here and stuff. And it goes up and up and you get more and more. Here's another one here. Okay, so they're just like little structures that are built out in here. And the people, of course, we don't even get the reports on what happens to those people. And, you know, they're not going to get the warning unless, of course, somebody sends it to them or they radio it into them or something. That's why I'm issuing the warnings days ahead of time, so that people have the time to get the warnings out, even to remote areas in the mountainous regions of China. Now, getting people in China to watch a YouTube video is probably going to be pretty hard, so that's why it falls on my viewers and the people who are out there to make note of the areas we talk about in the updates, and then to warn the people that they know that live there directly, like send them an email or call them and say, hey, you're sandwiched in between two areas. You got a deep earthquake on one side, you've got a volcano on the other, you're the middle point, and it's going to be bigger than anything you've seen in the last several months. Or years in this case, at the location. So I'm going to save this as a video on my YouTube channel so that people can see in future generations, of course, that the earthquake struck, but that we issued a warning, or at least I'm telling you about it. And if you want to see me issue the warning, you can go over to my YouTube channel and go back a couple days on the videos. Now, one other thing, just to point out that, you know, earthquakes are striking in areas where we have issued warnings. Last night in my earthquake update, we brought up the East Coast and we talked about how the West Coast was pushing, and it was pushing across the Midwest, and it would be striking up near the New York-Quebec border with a 3.0 type earthquake. Well, a very rare 3.7 earthquake struck just north. Now, this is beyond the range I would consider acceptable. I usually try to get it down to 200 miles, but there it is. There is the mid-range 3, upper 3, to strike on the Craton edge up in the northeast at the Quebec-Maine border, or the Quebec-New Brunswick-Maine region there. And that is just a sign of pressure transferring. But look, I mean, an East Coast earthquake, super rare. Why is it a 3.7? Add up all the earthquakes that struck in the Midwest over the past several days, and that tallies what struck up to the Northeast. Just another example. So word up to all my people around the planet, and to the people who are overseas, all I can tell you, when I issue a warning, I take it serious. The halfway fulcrum point just got hit between the volcano and the big earthquakes, and the deep earthquakes, and this now stands to reason this is going to go over to the west as well. And guess what? Whenever we get earthquakes here, guess who gets hit downstream? Iran. So Iran's going to get hit again, and I'll have an update for them at 10 p.m. I have to get a lot together in the next few hours to formulate on what's going to be striking downstream from this 6 in light of what's already heading towards Europe. All of this is heading into Europe. Okay, so be prepared, be ready, do not be scared. We have a roadmap, and this one just struck right on the middle of the road. As expected, we expect the pressure to transfer along these lines. So if you live along these lines, you need an earthquake plan, especially right now. This is what I was talking about yesterday. When I got on yesterday and showed you all these 5s, and I said, look, it's creeping up across the West Pacific. There's one spot in between here in China that should fill in, and that takes us over to Europe. Well, here we are. Now it's filled in with a big one. Man, all right. Please, when this video posts, I'm going to save it as a video now, will you please share it so people can see an example of another earthquake striking in an area where we issued a warning, where now there's probably some serious damage, at least in the towns nearby? I would really appreciate it. Okay, guys? Word up. Peace out.